So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kenneth Fox. Kenneth's our CEO in Channel Mechanics, and he's going to kick things off.
Thanks very much, Brenda, and welcome everybody. So yeah, we're kind of here to help or answer questions today, but just in terms of kicking it off, I suppose, you know, we all heard it on the last part of the session just previous to this about simplification, and you know, overall the channel isn't less simple, it's much more complex than it ever has been in terms of the numbers and types of partners, the routes to market through the channel, pricing models, and various different programs. So really simplification comes with automation in terms of how you interact with the partners, and ultimately placing ease of doing business front and center of what you do. So, you know, we look at things like, say, at Channel Mechanics, we work with, you know, many vendors globally, hundreds of thousands of partners use our platform, and hundreds of different distributors. And, you know, we hear, you know, on a daily basis, we're never more than 5 minutes into a conversation when partners talk about certain vendors being difficult to work with. You know, and a good stat to think about is partners will work with between 5 and 12 vendors in the tech sector is the kind of Forrester and Gartner numbers that they quote. So if you think about, you know, you're trying to get mind share from a partner or get preference from a partner, it really is important that you place ease of doing business or automation at the center of how you deliver your programs into the channel. And, you know, to do that, you require automation in the complex world we now all operate in. So, you know, simple things like making it easy for you know, we talked about the portal in the last conversation, but making it very easy for a partner to see what they're eligible for in your partner portal. When they do get into the various programs, it could be something like an incentive or a rebate. It could be something like MDF. It could be what level on the program I'm on. It's just making it very easy for the partners to see all of that or consume all of that. So I would kind of encourage, you know, less emails, more asking the partner to come to your dashboard or your portal and have dashboards there that represent visually. It's the old thing of, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Make them, you know, or have those dashboards in front of them. So if you say something as simple as, you know, we have 3 different tiers in our program, where do I stand in those tiers? Am I gold, silver, or bronze, just for simplicity of description? What is it that goes into those tiers? And again, as the channel has got more complex, so have the tiers. And ultimately, it's important to partners which tier they're on, because they'll get to, you know, they'll get higher rebates, they'll get more MDF dollars, they'll get bigger discounts, for example, if they're on the higher tiers. So it's important to easily display to those partners where they are on your tiered system, if you like. And again, if you have high volumes of partners or even low volumes of partners with a complex program, it's very difficult to do that on spreadsheets. So that's kind of where automation, you know, comes into play. And in years gone past, you know, it was quite a job to do this, but there are really great solutions out there now, and they're not expensive. So sometimes people are worried that this is a heavy lift, it's going to take a long time to do, it's going to be expensive. That's not really the reality anymore. There's so many solutions out there that can help you with your partner ecosystem and do the kinds of things I just said, in terms of, you know, getting it visually represented in front of them when they log on as to how they're doing on the tiers, what are the, you know, what are the rewards they get for bringing more revenue, for doing more training. Or then if you move into the, you know, the newer type offers like the SaaS offers, or as we move into the monthly recurring revenue model, you know, you have to try and transition partners on that journey with you, and as a result, you might pay them out higher rebates for a period of time or give them deeper discounts, etc. So there's some of the, you know, the kind of things you need to think about when it comes to ease of doing business or automation in your channel, to cope with all of the variables that now exist, from the partner types to the more complex products, to moving into the world of monthly recurring revenue, to trying to ultimately win those partners' mindshare over your competitors. You know, again, keeping in mind that they will be working with the competition typically. So I'll pause there, Brenda, for a minute and see if that's making sense, if people have questions, or indeed if you have anything coming in, Brenda.
Yeah, so I think everyone might be on mute at the moment, so please do feel free to unmute yourself and join in the conversation, or if you have any kind of feedback or your experience is kind of different to what we're saying, we'd really love to hear it. So you might remember when you registered, we asked people to kind of, if they had any questions that they'd like covered in the group. So I'm going to kick off with one of these. This one is from Claire. I don't think Claire is in the group at the moment, but if you are, just let me know. But I'll read out the question here anyway. I am very interested in the systems that facilitate automation for a partner community. So any information on that would be great.
Okay, thanks, Brenda. Yeah, so again, like I said, there's many of them out there. I can obviously Channel Mechanics have one. That's kind of what we do, and we automate all of the types of programs. One of the things we see is most companies we work with already have some level of a portal. It could be a homegrown portal. They might be on Salesforce already, but what they're typically not good at is the automation of the program piece. So, let's say you're on Salesforce already, or Oracle or SAP, or whatever your CRM or PRM system is, you still need to build out the programmatic aspect. So how do you do your tiering? How do you deliver your MDF? How do you pay out your incentives or calculate them? That's kind of where we come into the equation. So we typically plug into one of those existing systems and we do all of that kind of heavy lifting, but behind the scenes basically. So we present it in a nice fashion to the partners, our distributors. We cater for both tier 1 and tier 2. So again, back to my earlier conversation was, we use a lot of dashboards to do that type of stuff. So if, say, it's an MDF program, a partner can easily see what funds they have available for what types of activities, where they are in the quarter or whatever you measure your periods by, and so on and so forth. If it's something like an incentive or a rebate you're paying out, we would represent that as something like a speedometer to show them what their targets are. And in some of these, say somebody like LG Electronics who would use our platform to run their incentives, they would have, multi-tiered types of programs. So you have, a base target, a stretch target, or indeed 2 stretch targets in some cases. And all the time you're showing the partner, if you get this extra sale, what it's going to mean to you in terms of a payout. And similarly on the partner tiering, as we get up into more of the complex programs, so people like, say, FireEye or Juniper that we would run these for, it's not a case of revenue and training. They have things like number of deal registrations, opportunities, customer adoption, monthly recurring revenue numbers, all of these kinds of things come in. So as the programs get more complex, because you're trying to influence these partners in different ways for different models, it's very difficult to do that without automation, because a spreadsheet just won't cut it anymore. So from our perspective, that's the type of automation we deliver, right through to more standard programs like pricing, discounts, promotions, and into the complex side of things, like where vendors sell through distribution and they might want to run additional discounts over and above what's in stock. So you have to take care of what they call back-end credits, or ship and debit, some people call it as well. And they're particularly complex programs where vendors actually lose a lot of money for the lack of automation. Distributors will typically overclaim, not necessarily knowingly. It's just something that's happened down through the years. They claim for maybe discounts that they didn't actually apply, or that the vendor didn't actually run through the channel.
Okay. Thanks, Kenneth. Does anyone else in the room want to kind of share their experience, if they're using channel automation, what systems they're using, how they're finding it?
Yeah, come on, don't be shy, guys. We'd love to hear some stories rather than me just talking. But
hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can,
yeah.
Hi, my name is Lisa Dunn. Thanks so much for the conversation thus far. I run marketing for channel marketing for a technology company called Ping Identity. I just had a couple questions for the group. In the age of automation, I'm just curious, we started talking about partner portal. I love your comments about sort of making the implicit explicit to the degree with, dashboards. So a partner, knows exactly where they stand and what are the things that they need to do to perhaps get to the next level. But I'm curious if this group, in this digital age, of course, what things have worked from a transparency and engagement standpoint with the portal via automation, because it's you know, and I understand that has to be persona based, but I'm just curious, any best practices? I know many of us say, oh, everybody comes in for deal registration, but I'm curious in terms of what things have provided some stickiness, because the more we get these guys to automate processes through the portal, I think, you know, it lends itself to so much more transparency from a supplier perspective. So any thoughts or comments on best practices there that have worked for this group?
Kenneth,
Yeah.
would you like to kick it off? And then if anyone else would like to join in?
Yeah, so thanks, Lisa, firstly for chiming in. Yeah, so you know, I've seen across, you know, 30 odd vendors that we work with, for example, getting as much as possible into the portal is really important. So everything from, you know, the basic deal registration, as you said, content is important. So having your content repository easily accessible there, and again, having it segmented, that when a partner comes in, you know, I'll keep it simple. It could be geography, it could be tiers, but that they only see what's relevant to them, because that really drives them nuts if they have to sift through stuff. And again, coming back to my stat of, you know, let's say they have to work with multiple vendors, the easier you make it to work with you. It sounds obvious, but vendors really don't do a very good job on that. So that kind of segmentation or partner differentiation is important. But moving up the stack a little bit, you mentioned MDF. Yeah, so I think that definitely makes it sticky, for sure. Another one is incentives or rebates, and that could be, you know, everything from the standard rebates that most vendors pay out as part of their program to things like running SPIF type programs or points based type programs. All of those um, drive traffic to your portal. So it's, you know, it's not good enough just to have a portal with deal registration by any stretch of the imagination. You really do need to have some of those other programs. You know, we often start with vendors and we work and we see kind of the critical mass is around 4 programs. That seems to be your tipping point. If you have deal registration, content, something like MDF, rebates, generally you'll start to see a lot of traffic. You know, other programs that are very successful that we run and have been extremely successful since COVID-19 is renewals type programs. So helping get the renewal opportunities out through your portal in front of the partners, they really appreciate that. It's strange, you know, they see those, even though they own the end customers, they're not very good. Certainly the smaller partners, they're not very good at keeping install base history. Whereas you should have it as a vendor, and presenting that back to them is a very effective way of, they think you're actually giving them opportunities, even though they're their own opportunities. And, you know, everybody here has worked with partners. One of the first things they'll ask for is, can you give me some leads? So it's amazing when you give them back their own lead, how
That's a
appreciative they
good
are.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really interesting insight.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's very helpful. I mean, amongst the other comments you made, but that's a really interesting one, right? Everybody wants leads, but to your point, they're right under their nose, but it's sort of wrapping it up and presenting it in a way that's
Yeah, and it's
actionable.
amazing. It's hard enough to win that business in the first place. You really want to help them monetize it, you know, because you know, it's, you win as well. And for the guys we've been doing it with for a few years, they get more and more sophisticated. So in the beginning, it's just about getting a flat renewal. After a while, they start to get smarter and do the cross sell, upsell as part of the renewal, and put maybe anything between 3 and 5 offers in front of the partner at any given time. So you can make
What
extra money.
can I just add, and I want to let the group, but this was one follow-up question, then I will let others ask, but a renewal program, what are the typical or some of the components that can you share some
Yeah,
ideas around that you've typically done? I'd welcome hearing
yeah,
some.
no, absolutely, Lisa. So it's really about say on our side, this is something we started doing. You know, one of our customers asked us would we help them with it, and we did, and it's been very successful. You know, we've resold it many times. But it's really about, you know, where do you record your install base when you're transacting your new sales? We then kind of reach into that and we transform that data into something very visual. So when a partner logs on, they'll have a, let's say, a renewals tile beside their deal reg tile or their promotions tile. They click into that and they'll see a dashboard, and it'll show them by end customer, you know, plus 90 days, minus 90 days. It's configurable, whatever period you want. It'll show them in customer who's up for renewal by value. So you always show them the highest value first, and you try and get them to work their way down. What's due in the next 90 days? Because often a renewal, it takes as much work to get 50 grand as it does to get 5 grand. You only have to do the same amount of work. So that really moves the needle. We've seen you know, in less than a year, we've seen with vendors, their renewal rates increase by as much as 20%, that they definitely would not have got without a simple concept of putting them out in front of the partners. Because most end customers will actually, it's not a hard sale. It's almost like car insurance. They want to have their insurance of their system is going to work, basically. So it's
Right.
not the hardest sale. It's just they don't know about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to kind of give any feedback on that?
Yes, I have feedback, and I have also a question for Kenneth, because we had some questions around the portal before, right?
Yeah.
In the questions, and for me, the portal is just the door and the contacts between the partner and the vendor. But behind the door, you need to have something, because the door is not enough. Like in the house, you need to have something in the house. You need to have foundations, rooms, and so on. So I think we can say that maybe it's at least for SAP, it's the partner program which governs what is behind the door. And I was wondering, Kenneth, if you see changes in the partner programs design. In fact, we were engaged into a partner program redesign before this COVID situation occurred, and this is work in process at the moment. But I was wondering, with your experience and the knowledge of working with various companies, do you see an evolution of the partner programs due to this current situation? And if yes, what type of main common points you see in the partner programs of the various companies?
Yeah, no, great question. There's a lot of facets to that, but I suppose go back to your first point. Yeah, no, I always call the portal. It's your window. You know, you say your door. I said the window, but it is your window to the world, right? We always kind of say the term. You should have a single pane of glass, and you're right, Serge. When you come in, then it's what's behind those programs that really matter. That's where the work goes on. So if you take something like, you know, we present it as a set of tiles. You have MDF, you have deal reg, you have rebates, whatever. Maybe some vendors have up to 30 different programs at any given time, right? But you only show those tiles to who's eligible for them. So again, kind of differentiation when they log in, or segmentation. So again, keeping it simple. And then when they click into those tiles, if like your example, they're in the house now, they go into a specific room, and that's where the MDF happens. And they all go like that. So kind of coming to your second point around what have we seen in COVID. But yeah, I'll come back to that in a second. But just before I do, overall, I suppose over the last couple of years, we would have seen programs starting to change anyway, I suppose, and even in the last 3 years. So with, you know, the adoption of cloud technology and the movement to the monthly recurring revenue model, that's been a very difficult shift for vendors to get partners to come on that journey with them. And we've worked with a lot of vendors who have struggled to do that. Some have done it quite successfully, others have really struggled with it because the partners are not that interested in it in terms of the revenue that it brings to them. It's a big hit actually until they get the transition done. So, you know, if I give a simple example, somebody say we would run Mitel's partner program, when they started a shift to the SaaS model in certain areas, they would have had to, you know, put, say, for example, customer success managers in place to help those partners across the transition. And they call it kind of, you know, on-premise and versus cloud is the terms they use. But very much increase the incentivization around those products. I mean, you know, these aren't accurate percentages, but to give you a sense of it, you know, standard rebates will be in the region of 1 to 5%, but in this world, they've moved up to 15 to 25%. So it's a very significant jump in terms of the payouts. And it's taken those kinds of numbers to incentivize partners. So for the first couple of years, paying them a very chunky amount back, and then kind of coming, once they get across that chasm, if you like, start to level out back into a more normal number, but still a much higher number than the standard. So the design of partner programs has shifted before COVID in terms of things like the numbers and types of partners you now need to cater for in your program. It's no longer a VAR and a DISTI and an SI. You've probably got somewhere in the region of 12 different partner types that you need to cope for. You know, things like referral partners now is really successful. Say we would support Informatica's partner program, for example. They get a lot of referral business. They pay out handsomely on it, but it's a win-win. And it's how you track those referrals. So that's a whole new element of your program, as is the monthly recurring or cloud-based subscription model. So you have partners now that change. They don't want to go on the journey, and they're no longer a resale partner. They might switch their model. I've got a lot of install base. I'm getting old. I just want to take referral business, and that's quite, that can be quite rich for a period of time. Okay.
Mm.
And then back to the last part of your question, I think at least was around COVID. So I haven't seen dramatic changes on the overall program. The way I look at a program, Serge, I suppose, is I see you have your overarching program, and then within that, you have the multiple programs like your MDFs and your rebates and your incentives, but your overarching program decides, the gives and gets, if you like, what's it worth to be on gold versus bronze, etc. What we have seen as a result of COVID is tuning or tweaking for certain of specific programs within the overall program. So take MDF as a good example. A lot of folks we worked with would have, given extensions on budgets, would have redirected what activities you can use MDF for, because on face-to-face or events are no longer possible, would have provided funds to help partners get trained up on things like webinars, even simple things like getting them the right technology, believe it or not, to be able to host their own webinars and just support them in that way. And then, another great example would be training. We've seen a lot of money redirected into training during COVID to get partners ready for when it's all over, but also giving grace periods or extensions. If their program rolled over during it, they've given everybody a quarter or even 2 quarters extension. If you were gold, you can stay gold for the next 6 months or whatever it is, and so on.
Mhm.
So it's a fairly long answer, but there's there is a hell of a lot going on. There's some of the things we've seen. Yeah. Hope that's useful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks for the question. Yeah.
I'll throw another question at you, Kenneth. This one came in from Doug, who I don't think is on the call at the moment. And it's, how are vendors using automation and self-service tools to reduce long-tail customer churn and improve customer experience?
Yeah. So again, it's a lot of, a lot of it is the same as what I would have already said. I think one aspect that I wouldn't have mentioned that's quite important is the internal view of the world. So automation is very important from a partner's aspect, or making it easier for the partner to work with you. But we find it's equally important in terms of empowering account managers to use their time more wisely, or better, more efficiently is probably the right word. So if you can, again, through automation, have an internal view of the world. If I'm an account manager and I own 20 or 30 accounts, whatever it is, I need to be able to see at a click how that partner is performing against the tiers, against their MDF, against their rebates, all of that kind of stuff. So giving the account manager a view of the world that's readily available on a platform that they can just click into. So if you're going to meet a partner, how, what's their KPIs basically at a glance, how are they doing? Or if one of your executives is meeting it, you need to be able to quickly put together that kind of QBR deck. That type of stuff is really helpful internally. And as for, the long tail piece of it, that kind of, that drill down lets you, figure out who's doing well versus who falls in the long tail and is only doing, relatively light business with you. Where we have seen, automation really help with the long tail is in my example of renewals earlier. That's, again, has really moved the needle for those guys, because, typically they drift around with lots of different vendors. But again, helping them do a better job on their renewals business with you has made a difference in terms of getting those guys back in the game.
Okay, thanks, Kenneth. So I think we just have maybe about 2 or 3 minutes left in the breakout session. So we were going to share with you some kind of top tips. You just bear with me 1 second, Kenneth.
Yeah, no, work away. And I'd love, if anybody has any questions while Brenda is doing that, we'd love to hear them, please.
So is my screen coming through there for you?
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'll let you go through this, Kenneth.
Yeah, thanks, Brenda. So yeah, this, and again, if anybody wants this after, we're more than happy to share it. It's recorded anyway, but if you want the charts, just reach out to myself or Brenda. We'll happily share them. But just some of the things, I wrote down coming into today. provide partner insights with program automation, a bit like what I said. So it's a two-pronged approach. One is the external view, helping the partners self-serve, see how they're doing for themselves, and encourage them to get to the next level, basically. One more sale, one more training cert, whatever it is that gets you to the next level or retains you on the current level. The second view of that is what I just described previously, is the internal view for the account managers. That's really important, and that's where we've seen a lot of success. Simple things like a partner is about to fall down a tier, they're falling out of training compliancy, they need to get some more revenue in. That makes an account manager be able to help that partner a lot better than they could without automation. One other thing I'll throw in is, emails and spreadsheets don't really help. They just get lost. We all resort to them eventually, but the reality is they just get lost on partners because they're receiving emails and spreadsheets from everybody else as well. So try and differentiate yourself from the crowd by, using a platform to engage with your partners versus emails and spreadsheets. They're just overwhelmed by them. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. When we automated a few years back, we automated what we call partner leveling. But so, Serge, you mentioned it there for SAP, you've redone your partner program. But if anybody has ever done this, it's quite a heavy lift. And most people have to do it at least once a year to take all of your partners. It's fine if you have a small number of partners, but if you get into the tens or hundreds, or in some cases thousands, this just becomes a very heavy lift to do. So when we automated it, what we saw some vendors doing with it, which wasn't necessarily what we designed it to do, was start to use the modeling element of it to say, if I increase my top threshold revenue by 50 or 100K, how many partners fall in or fall out? If I reduced or increased my training. And that ultimately means, what dollars you pay out to partners. So you can really quickly, through automation, do a much better job on modeling of your tiers of your program. And I think we're about to get kicked out, Brenda. But
yeah, you've got about 20 seconds.
Yeah, the last one is, and it's really important, is ease of doing business has to be front and center of how we all operate. That is the number one thing that partners say to us every single day. Okay, so thanks everybody for your attention and interest. Thank you.